What does it mean for a group of people to be treated as if their safety is optional? Not in theory, but in the ways that the laws are written and applied, in where policing happens, in which cases are investigated, and in whose lives are understood as worthy of protecting. Today's paper by Professor John Lowman argues that this is not just a series of failures, it's a system, one that produces zones where violence becomes predictable and where some people are positioned outside of the boundaries of concern. He called this system the discourse of disposal. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the scholar whose work we're engaging with today, the late Professor Emeritus John Lowman. John's scholarship fundamentally reshaped how many of us understand adult industry work, law, state power, and violence. His evidence demonstrated empirically and theoretically that the conditions producing harm against adult workers is not accidental, but structured. Across the decades, he documented what institutions and systems refused to see, and in doing so contributed to movements challenging state violence and demanding justice for all adult industry workers. John's influence as a geographer turned socio-legal scholar is consequential and lives on. May he rest in power. Today's paper, Violence and the Outlaw Status of Street Prostitution in Canada, asks us to rethink a question that is still politically urgent. Why does violence concentrate in specific spaces against some workers in ways that appear predictable and preventable? Using historical homicide data, media analysis, and socio-legal critique, Lowman shows that this violence cannot be understood as individual pathology. It is produced through what he calls the discourse of disposal. This concept describes a political and cultural process in which certain populations are constituted as unworthy of protection, nuisance, and discardable through law, policing, urban policy, and media narratives. And once a group is positioned as disposable, violence against them becomes normalized, under-investigated, and misrecognized, not because it's rare, but because it's expected. By revisiting murder cases over several decades, Lowman demonstrates that violence concentrates in spaces shaped by enforcement and displacement, that those most exposed are those without resources and options, and that criminalization reorganizes and amplifies risk rather than reducing it. And critically, that the most extreme forms of violence are part of a continuum of harm, not an anomaly. One of the paper's most enduring contributions is its analysis of what John calls quasi-criminalization, a system where sex work is technically legal, but most every condition required to do it safely is prohibited, thus making collective working, third-party support, and secure workplaces legally risky. This context produces adversarial relationships with police, displacement of the industry into isolated spaces, barriers to collective safety, and the appearance of individual risk rather than structural harm. What sits underneath this analysis is a deeper question about recognition, whose lives are understood as worthy of police and social protection, or politically prioritized. Because when a group is positioned outside of full cultural citizenship, violence against them becomes normalized and easier to ignore. This article is now decades old, but its analytical framework is still used to understand policing strategy and criminalization leading to displacement, media framing, the differential protection offered to populations in a society, and the relationship between law and lethal violence. It gives us a vocabulary for connecting stigma, criminalization, disposability, and violence. So, a question for you. If a legal system can render some lives disposable, what would it take for us to disrupt this process, to protect those currently targeted, and to prevent more of us from being placed outside of its protection? This article is not open access, but it may be available online and through library resources. I strongly encourage you to read it. It remains one of the most important socio-legal analyses in the field. The link and full citation are in the description box. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video, and I'll see you in the next one.